What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today it's Dire Straits. Going to be talking about some Dire Straits. I was listening to my iPod, which I still have, on shuffle, and a Dire Straits song came up, a very particular Dire Straits song, a song that I think is one of their best. That um, After I heard the song, I was like, oh, this is like easily their best song, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody else praise it or love it. Or when I read reviews of the album it's on, it's generally dismissed as this forgettable song. And I'm like, that's like the best thing they've ever done. Maybe close, top five easily. And so I'm like, well, then let's just make a video. And I'm feeling pretty lazy is not the word. I wouldn't be doing this if I was feeling lazy, but I'm feeling kind of laid back and chill. And Dire Straits, to me, at their best, is laid back and kind of chill. Even though they can get kind of high in energy, they generally, there's a chill vibe to them. Mark Knopfler seems like a pretty chill soul. And despite their hits, I think some of their best stuff has more of a mellow, laid back groove and a laid back vibe. So I thought, what a perfect thing to do. Not a huge Dire Straits fan, to be honest. Saw them live, was fortunate enough to see them live twice. Both of them were not as good as the Alchemy Live album, which I love, only because I saw them from Brothers in Arms afterwards, and there was a little too much Brothers in Arms on there. But I do think they have three very, very strong albums, neither of which are perfect because there's at least a major flaw in each, a minor flaw in one of them. And yeah, just a really good album. But I think I would say the highlight of any Dire Straits album is the Mark Knopfler guitar playing. He is a fantastic guitar playing. His sound, his style. I think he always finger picks. I don't think he uses a pick. So even when he's soloing, there's a real special sort of bite to a lot of his sound and the way he plays guitar and the way he can he can play notes and mute notes at the same time, and he does a lot of really picked arpeggios and really cool. He's just a fascinating guitar player. And even on the least successful of his albums, if you listen to them, when you get to the guitar solos, you're like, okay, this was worth it to sit through this. Not good enough to save a couple of the albums, but still good nonetheless. To me, to these ears right here, these cold ears. But anyways, yeah. How do we get here from Zappa? Zappa, the Brecker brothers, right? That's their name, Brecker, not Becker. Michael and Randy, they played on both Zappa's Zinni in New York album, the live run of shows that they did at the end of 1976. They were horn players on that. And then they also both played on the Brothers in Arms album, if I'm not mistaken. Brecker. Yeah. Not Becker. Yeah. So they both played with Zappa and that. Plus, Mark Knopfler has played with Dylan. I'm sure Knopfler has played with other people who maybe have a sort of like crossover to Frank. But that is the main connection, is the Brecker brothers. Yeah, I'm trying to find out, look at them. But yeah, I think it's just Michael and Randy. There's probably more, but that's the connection. It's good enough for me. And my exposure to Dire Straits, I knew Sultans of Swing growing up, but the one that made me go out and buy an album was Skate Away off their Making Movies album. That was a big popular music video back when MTV started. I bought Making Movies because of that. My mom bought Brothers in Arms when that came out, so Brothers in Arms was played all the time in my house. And so I was big on them, a couple albums before, one album before Brothers in Arms. But I never loved the other stuff. Making Movies was sort of the thing that got me. And so anyways, yeah, I'm too mellow. I'm way too much like Mark Knopfler. Let's just get on to the reviews, right? There's 6 albums, not going to do the live ones. I did not think their last live album, which I can't even remember the name of it, In the Night or something on the night maybe. I did not think that was a good album. A lot of stuff from their last 2 albums and just kind of not that exciting rehashes of earlier material. Their Alchemy Live album, which came out before Brothers in Arms, after Love Over Gold, is fantastic. It is indulgent. It is messy. There's codas at the end of songs. There's intro parts. There's drawn out things. It is like this indulgent, sloppy mess of a brilliant album, I think. Great song selection. Everything about it I love. That would probably be That might be number one on this list if I were to include it. I absolutely think Alchemy Live is a fantastic live album. So if you do like Dire Straits and have not checked it out, I think it's worth checking out. It's indulgent. Like there's a lot of jamming and like Once Upon a Time in the West is stretched out to 14 minutes for some reason, but it works for me. And they have an EP that had 3 songs on it, one of which, Two Young Lovers, is fantastic. It's on Alchemy Live. The other one, Twisting by the Pool, I think it's on all their compilation and greatest hits albums, so you might have heard it if you have one of those. But yeah, that's enough yakking. I'm just going to get on to the albums. Let's go on to number 6, people. Number 6. Number 6 is their last and 6th album, 1991's On Every Street. Came out, what, like 6 whole years after Brothers in Arms came out. It feels like an album that was labored over and like overproduced and just like it is adult rock. Like their first 4 albums, they sort of experimented kind of with a little bit of different genres. And then by the time they got to Brothers in Arms, Mark Knopfler pretty much was an expert in adult rock, kind of safe, not edgy, somewhat exciting rock. This is an even more generic version of Brothers in Arms. I think there's a couple kind of really bad songs on here. One or two memorable songs, one failed attempt at what could be a good song. But for the most part, it's just so low key and so just like these just really low, slow tempo songs that the only highlight is the guitar playing. Again, if there's a saving grace on this, it's the guitar playing. But it's just not a song that an album that I ever go back and listen to. I went back and listened to it for the sake of this video to remind myself of why I didn't like it. And yeah, I still will probably never go back and listen to it again. Though there is one song on here I do have on a Dire Straits playlist that I do think is kind of good. But it's an hour long, which is part of the problem. I do think if you cut it down to a good 40 minutes and you cut off maybe, 10 minutes off each side, maybe you got a slightly better album, a slightly stronger album, but it's still going to be 6. The opening track, Calling Elvis, was kind of an attempt at sort of a longer, looser, kind of jammy type song, but the end doesn't really go anywhere and just kind of treads water for a while. And why are we writing songs about Elvis in 1991? I don't know. On Every Street has potential. Starts off really slow, kind of a nice ballady Mark Knopfler type thing, and then has this really beautiful coda at the end that kind of repeats a couple times, almost like a badge, Eric Clapton badge type coda. That not as dramatic and awesome as that, but that kind of thing. But it just doesn't go anywhere, and it feels like it's just way too short. It needed maybe 2 more minutes, maybe a better Knopfler guitar solo thrown in there. But there's potential in that song. It just doesn't deliver. And then the rest of the songs, I just kind of don't remember what they're about. The Bug has kind of a looser, kind of bluegrassy jam. Heavy Fuel is a horrible song. He's trying to be a tough guy about all the vices that he abuses. Maybe they're the money for nothing on this album, but it's just not any good. I think Iron Hand is the only song I really like. Kind of a slower number, if I'm not mistaken. Again, these names are just... apparently it was on a soundtrack for a video game. It was on a compilation soundtrack. But I kind of like Iron Hand. The second half of the album, again, it's slower. I think the songs have stronger melodies and are maybe a little bit better. But again, it's just not that memorable. And then The Planet of New Orleans, which is like 7.5 minutes of just like not going anywhere. Doesn't sound anything like New Orleans. If no, especially a planet. If New Orleans was a planet, it would not sound like this. There would definitely be more energy than this. Be a song Little Feat would have to write, as far as like bands I've done on this channel go. But anyways, yeah. I honestly can't recommend this album. I think it's really safe, contemporary adult rock, for lack of a better word. And the only real highlight, without a doubt, is Knopfler's guitar playing throughout. Some opportunities, but they were missed. Anyways, number 6. Yeah, I feel kind of blah about that album. Number 5 is Brothers in Arms, their 1985 album that also had Sting on it, and Sting performed with Frank, and I've done the Police albums elsewhere on here. And Tony Levin is on this album too, I just found out or realized or remembered. one of those things. And Levin was in King Crimson and Adrian Belew was in King Crimson. So there's more Zappa connections. I knew they would pop up, people. This album came out in the when I was the biggest musical sponge of my life, a 15-year-old teenager. So I was absorbing everything. My mom bought this album. I think we had it on CD and vinyl because my stepdad might have bought it on vinyl. So we listened to the heck out of this thing. There's a couple songs that I do like, but again, kind of like On Every Street, it is an adult rock album that is just mid-tempo, kind of snoozy. Like the songs, there's like an 8.5 minute song, which is Money for Nothing, which I'm okay with that. Like 6.5 minute, 8.5 minute, 7 minute, another 7 minute songs that don't need to be as long as they are. They're just one idea that's stretched out to just like, I don't want to be insulting, but kind of snooze fest lengths. It's not a bad album. Like again, it's what I don't want this album. And again, the three songs that are the hits, So Far Away, Money for Nothing, and Walk of Life. Nah, man, I can't listen to any of those songs ever again in my life. I've heard them way too much. So Far Away, never. I never thought it was a good song. Money for Nothing, I respect that song. I like the Don't Stand So Close to Me Sting intro part. I think that's clever. I think the intro is made for like arena rock, that drum intro. You had to do something like that after Phil Collins changed the landscape within the air tonight. And Walk of Life, I don't like Walk of Life. Don't like Walk of Life. Not a fan of Walk of Life. So the rest of the album, Your Latest Trick, I like Your Latest Trick. Feels like a late night New York City kind of thing. Maybe a late night in the 80s, like late night 80s in a city. You got a saxophone, it's probably raining, going to some jazz clubs. I like Your Latest Trick. It's got some really good playing on it. To me, it's the most atmospheric, successful set piece on here. Why Worry? Just way too long. Right Across the River, that sort of really bad pseudo tribal, not tribal, but that kind of like Peter Gabriel world sound, but more along the lines of The Police's Walking in Your Footsteps, which I think is a horrible song. This is Dire Straits' version of Police's horrible Walking in Your Footsteps. Sorry for that. The Man's Too Strong, which is a nice acoustic guitar part, but again, it just gets bombastic in a way that I don't think it needs to in the middle. Dun 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 bum bum. And I think if it had stayed more of a simpler acoustic song, would have been really successful and maybe a little bit better. But it's a kind of an interesting album song. And then One World, which is just a straight 3.5 minute pop song, some really nice, tight, terse, effective guitar playing. I like that. Those two songs, The Man Too Strong, One World, are good combo on side B. But then Brothers in Arms, the title track, is just 7 minutes of just way too laid back, low key. Like, just, nah, man, I'm not here for that. So yeah, this album never really did anything for me. I saw them on this tour. They played way too much of stuff from this tour. I didn't like to hear it. And then on the following tour, they played way too much stuff from this album on the following tour, the On Every Street tour. So yeah, man. These are my bottom two. They just became this really successful adult contemporary rock band that's not my jam. But again, the guitar playing's good. Knopfler can play the guitar. I just wish he played it in a different context, in a different musical environment. But that's number 5, Brothers in Arms. Number 4 is their debut album, Dire Straits, 1978. This is not a bad album. I don't like it as much as I recently discovered quite a lot of other people do. Mainly because I really like the other three, and I think or one of those is criminally underrated. But my problem with this album is, other than the awesome opening track, Down to the Waterline, which just has that great rhythm guitar, like just that very swing, upbeat flow that the early This and the Communique have as far as rhythm guitar playing goes, with Knopfler's like lead lines and Phil's filling in. Great song. The rest of the first side, still thinking this in terms of vinyl, the rest of side 1 to me is just forgettable. It's just sort of dipping their toes in slightly different sort of roots rock, pub rock, straight ahead rock and roll type genres. None of them I think are too effective. I don't think Knopfler's songwriting is all that interesting. And so side 1, other than the opening track, is just kind of a big snooze fest. But then you get to side 2, which you got Sultans of Swing. Just a straight up classic. In the Gallery, Wild West End, and Lions, all of which I think are pretty good, slightly more interesting songs, in which instead of sort of dipping their toes, I think, into more like traditional musical forms and giving their spin on that, they're kind of maybe more staking a claim as Dire Straits, a band, and maybe having a little more of an identity with slightly more interesting sounds. Again, it's nothing too crazy or inventive or out there, but the melodies are stronger. I just think the music is stronger. The ideas are a little more interesting. Don't seem sort of like tired and tropey at this point. But yeah, it's a great band. Like, it was a four-piece at this point with the Knopflers on guitar, lead Mark, David on rhythm, Pig Withers on drums, John Illsley on bass. Really tight, really good band. I just think half of this album, the songwriting is just kind of boring. I listened to this a lot because I had there was a twofer cassette of it that had this on one side and Communique on the other. And I really, really like Communique. So I listened to this a lot because I didn't believe in fast forwarded or rewriting cassettes because I was told it ruins the cassette. So I was like, I'm going to listen to this. So I listened to the first first 5 songs on this way more than I probably ever wanted to. Never, ever came around to really liking them. And some of them, Water of Love in particular, I just kind of don't like at this point. But the second half of this album, I think, is strong. But I don't know, man. Unless you're a huge, huge Dire Straits fan, I don't know what else there is here other than sort of Sultans of Swing and the opening track, Down to the Waterline. But yeah, anyways, yeah, again, haven't been too excited about all these, but these next 3, yeah, baby. But that's number 4, their debut album, Dire Straits. Number 3 is 1982's Love Over Gold. 5 songs, one of which is the worst thing they've ever done, and I do not like it at all. And so it ruins this album. However, the other 4 songs, 3 of the other 4 songs are so good that they lift this to number 3. And the 4th song is decent. And because it follows the worst thing they've ever did, I kind of like it because it's like sugar after something absolutely bitterly horrible. So 5 songs, so they're long songs. The first side A on the original vinyl is 2 songs. 14.5-minute Telegraph Road, Private Investigations. When I first heard this album back in 82, after I'd had Making Movies and loved that album, I really didn't like the sort of, I don't think I got Making Movies till like I was like after this had come out, to be honest with you. I didn't like, I thought they needed more. I thought they needed more guitar playing, more guitar heroics. I thought the jam at the end of Telegraph Road needed to hit harder. I just wanted something more. And over the years, maybe as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate the really sort of low-key atmospheric nature of Knopfler's writing and like what both of these songs accomplish. Telegraph Road is based on this amazing book, which I obviously heard the song before I read the book. Not obviously, but I heard the song way back when I was a teenager. And I recently, about 10 or 15 years ago, I'm reading all the books on this book called 1001 Books You Should Read Before You Die. And the book that Telegraph Road is based on, it's not The Hunger, but it's something like that. The book that Telegraph Road is based on, I was reading the book, and I was like, wow, this sounds a lot like Telegraph Road. Man walking down a track with a sack on his back, builds a house, people come in, the city, like he's going to escape the world, but then people like what he's done, so they build his house around him, and then goes. It's like a Scandinavian book, I think. But it's amazing. And so then I later read that he was inspired by that book and wrote the song, and it's perfect. And it's just an amazing song about like one person builds a house on this place, and then over the years, like, you know, a city is built around him, and you got people racing down the road on streetlights at night. And it's just really slow paced and has these amazing guitar playing. It kind of has moments that pick up the energy and kick in, but it's just this really long, patient, I just think well thought out, well delivered 14.5-minute song that I've grown to like absolutely love over the years. And then Private Investigations is another one that is very atmospheric. Like almost spoken words. There's like no singing. It's like, this is my investigation. This is not a public inquiry. He's just kind of muttering the words. Very like rock and roll noir. Like it is a soundtrack to a film noir, like a noir movie. To some film noir, is that the way you say it? Like a good like Sam Spade, like black and white film. It has a really nice ending where things kind of pick up a little, and you got Private Investigations, boom, bun, dun, and then the guitar comes in and you get some nice guitar playing. And I always thought it needed more. I always thought it needed a bigger, more explosive ending. But over the years, I'm like, no, man, it's the right amount of explosives and it's just perfect. Side A, those two songs, a perfect side of music. Side B opens up with the worst song they've ever done, Industrial Disease. Mark Knopfler's trying to be funny. He's talking about industrial disease and the problems, modern day technology. It's got these horrible keyboard sounds. Just I hate it. Way too long. Oh, I thought it was like 8 minutes long. It's only like 5.5 minutes long. I just think it's the worst thing they've ever done. I don't think Knopfler's strength is writing cutesy, funny songs. That song, Heavy Fuel, on Every Street. Another thing where he tries to be funny, it doesn't work. Money for Nothing, he tries to be funny, but because he's lifting it from direct quotes from other people, I think it works better. Not his strength. Not his strength. I hate this song. Like I'm not one of those people who skip songs on albums. I skip the song every time it comes on because I love all the other songs on this album. Love Over Gold, ballady number, kind of a little more softer side of Knopfler. Song I grew to love because it followed Industrial Disease. And then when I got the CD version of Alchemy, I originally had the vinyl. The CD has Love Over Gold after Romeo and Juliet. So I came to like that song even more. And then the reason I'm making this video, people, It Never Rains. The closing 8-minute track on this album. I've read reviews where people dismiss this. I have seen people rank this album like high and dismiss the song. I have seen them rank it low and dismiss the song. I think this song is like one of the best things they've done. Reminds me of Dylan. I think it's one of his most Dylan-esque things, not the most obviously Dylan-esque. It's still a very Knopfler melody, almost a little too sweet and cutesy. But over the course of like the first 3.5, 4 minutes, that there's a lot of lyrics. And there's the first 4.5 is really heavy on the lyrics. And it's almost the same like melodic structure throughout the whole thing, but it has this momentum that continues to build. And it reminds me very much of Dylan's live shows, like the late 70s, early 80s, like this religious period. Those live shows are amazing. That box set that he recently released of all his live material, there's a complete live show that's nothing but new songs. And it's one of the best shows I've ever heard. It is fantastic. That band was fantastic. But Dylan's songs are essentially like, you have the same 30, 40 seconds of music that are literally repeated for like 5 or 6 minutes. But the band and the energy and the momentum just kind of builds and builds and builds. So you feel like you're actually going someplace. That's what this song feels like. Then it drops into this real funky little groove, like towards like the middle third of the song. The lyrics continue. The groove is a little funkier. It's hitting a little harder. And then the lyrics are done. And we're off on like the best 3 minutes of ending guitar playing of any Dire Straits song. Yeah, I'm going to go out there. Any studio Dire Straits song. It is some of the best. His style, his picking, his phrasing, the sound of his guitar. This is just an absolute masterpiece ending of this album. And if it weren't for Industrial Disease, you can pick, man, give me any other song, man. Put there, this album jumps to number 2. It's not going to be number 1, but it jumps to number 2. But Industrial Disease just hurts it. But man, 3 epic songs. Telegraph Road, Private Investigations, It Never Rains. Love Over Gold is tolerable. 1 horrible song. But that's my number 3. This album, Love Over Gold, Dire Straits, 1982. Number 2 is their second album, Communique. This came out 9 months after their solo debut album, and apparently it was rushed. So it was June of '79. Apparently it was a rushed effort because they wanted to capitalize on the success that Sultans of Swing was having. They're like, let's get this out there. I was surprised. So like what I do when I make these lists, I make my list, I have it, this is my list, and then I go back and if I remember, I'll Google like other people's lists to see like what music magazines or what random people have, or sometimes I'll watch videos. And this was generally at the bottom or at the back of most people's lists. The reviews I read were like, it was obviously a rushed effort with less successful songwriting than the first one. I'm like, what? No. This is so much better than the first one. The songwriting is way more interesting. The ideas are more interesting. The groove is more interesting. The tempo, everything about this is more interesting than the first one. I don't understand it. opens up with what I think is their best opener of any album, Once Upon a Time in the West. Love this song, love this groove. There is a lyric in here that is like, oh yeah, for a song written in 1979, every time I hear this, I'm like, oh wow, Knopfler was on this one. Once upon a time in the West. What is the lyric that I like? Oh, you could even catch a bullet from a peacekeeping force. Yeah, so that always rings true as far as like, I know by peacekeeping force they mean something not your local cops, but in America, that line rings, oh, you could even catch a bullet from the peacekeeping force. Even the hero gets a bullet in the chest. Once upon a time in the West. Yeah, that could apply to now. You could write that song now and people are going to be putting their own interpretations on it. But so many Sunday driver never took a test. A line I say to myself every time I drive around town. I live on a part of town with a lot of slow drivers. Yeah, I love this song. Love the lyrics, love the delivery, love the guitar playing, love the slow mid-tempo kind of groove. Fantastic opening song. News starts off acoustic, has a nice slow atmosphere. I think it's a really good song. Where Do You Think You're Going? Another one with some really good, great acoustic guitar playing. Just sounds really, really good. Communique reminds me of, who is the band Communique always reminds me of? I can't remember, but it reminds me of some early 80s band. What is it? Maybe like a little Talking Heads? No, it's not Talking Heads. I think Communique might be the weakest song on here. But it reminds me of something. And the second half of it picks up some good momentum. Starts off kind of rough, but the second half of it kind of salvages the song. Lady Rider leads off side two. Lady Rider is sort of, in a lot of reviews, they were calling it like the Sultans of Swing, the answer to Sultans of Swing. And you can't match Sultans of Swing, but it's a great song. Guitar playing, I think the guitar playing on Lady Rider might even be better. I mean, just some of his, like, his style of picking and the way he plays is so fantastic. The lyrics can't quite capture that magic that Sultans of Swing captures, that capture of a scene, you know, on a Saturday night or a Friday night or whatever, you know, where all the clubs are. Doesn't quite have that magic, that lightning in a bottle effect, but the song itself is fantastic. Angel of Mercy, just kind of your typical Dire Straits song. Portobello Bell, which I really like, kind of a, you know, about somebody kind of foreseeing, or kind of foreseeing, what is the word? I don't know the word. Foreshadowing what would come on Making Movies, with some of those character-driven songs that are so epic on that album. Single-Handed Sailor, which has a great groove in it. And then Follow Me Home, which is another slowly building one that just has some absolutely fantastic, if not perfect, guitar. This is an underrated, not going to say it's a masterpiece, because Angel of Mercy is kind of just by the numbers. Communicate takes a while to go, but I think everything else on this is just so fantastic. And I just don't understand why it doesn't get the love that I'm giving it. I'm giving it the love. Love this album, people. It's worthy of all your love. It is definitely not a sophomore slump. And I think, like they always talk about how it was rushed after 9 months, right? And so you can feel that rushness. I compare this to On Every Street, which took 6 years and found sounds belabored and completely like tinkered, so there's no soul or life in it. This thing feels like rough edges, a little sloppy. Maybe they could have taken some time to develop these songs more, but then they would have lost that whatever it is that for me makes this album work. So yeah, man, don't hate on rushed albums. It's a good album. But now we're on to number one, which, if you know Dire Straits, you knew this was number one from the beginning, I'm pretty sure. Number one is 1980s Making Movies. Yeah, this was all over MTV because of Skate Away. That video was played a lot. Absolutely love that song. There was a line in there about, it's about a woman, about a girl, a young woman who is roller skating around the place. And she's got her headphones on, listening to music. And there is a whole line in here that has still resonates with me today when I ever listen to songs. It's in the ears, she's making movies on location. Oh, but the music make her want to be the story, and the story was whatever was the song, what it was. And to me, that idea of like, yeah, whatever the song is the movie I'm envisioning in my head, and I want to be that movie. And that idea of like, you know, the music make her want to be the story, and the story was whatever was the song. And just like listening to music in your headphones, you have no fear at night because you have this music there to accompany you. Just, it's great lyrics. The delivery, I think, is one of Knopfler's all-time best delivered songs. The guitar playing, the rhythm section, laying it down hard on this. Yeah, and this was a three-piece at this point. Mark Knopfler had left, so it's just the drummer, Pick Withers, Ilsley on bass, Knopfler on guitar on this entire album. Opens up with an 8-minute Tunnel of Love. Just another, I think it's about young love, I'm assuming, about some guy who goes to some place for the summer or on vacation, and he falls in love with this girl. You know, he said like sort of a place that has like music clubs and like a carnival and like rides and stuff like that. And it's just kind of this like boardwalk type vibe. Tunnel of Love, obviously. Just a great song, great intro, this nice little carousel waltz intro, and then the song starts proper, really good guitar solo, really nice outro that they kind of jammed out live. Romeo and Juliet, nice, really acoustic guitar song about Romeo and Juliet, you know, sort of. But hey, it's Romeo screaming up at you, you know, great lyrics, sort of not the Romeo and Juliet, but a modern day Romeo and Juliet. But just, again, some of his great lyrics, he could write really good lyrics at times. Sometimes they were bad, but this one, it's just one of those you want to listen to and sing along with if you know the words, because it is just such a beautiful song. Probably, I think, like the Dire Straits song. Like if Money for Nothing had never happened, I think this is the song that maybe, well, I guess Sultans of Swing. But a love-struck Romeo sings the streets a serenade, laying everybody. Yeah, I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but it's great lyrics. It's a great performance. Knopfler snaps in it. You gotta love it when Knopfler snaps. But it is, I guess, about Romeo and Juliet, though it's kind of modernized, maybe. I don't know. I just think it's a brilliant song. I think it can apply to anybody, any star-crossed lovers. And then you get Skate Away, and that's side A. Tunnel of Love, Romeo and Juliet, Skate Away. A perfect side of music. Side B, less perfect, has an absolutely horrible song to close it. Espresso Love, phenomenal song, nice upbeat rocker. Don't want no sugar in my tea, one of my great lines because I hate iced tea with sugar. Hand in Hand, nice slower one, kind of a love ballad. Solid rock, pretty much a by the numbers rocker that has some pretty good energy. And the atrocious Less Boys closes it out. The less we say of that atrocity, the better. But despite only having 6 good songs out of 7, easily my number 1 favorite Dire Straits album. Yeah, that's all I got to say about this band, apparently. That's my Dire Straits list, people. I wanted to make this video so I could get people to go out and listen to It Never Rains. An underrated, absolute classic of a song. Why aren't you listening to it already? I don't know. Thank you for listening to this video and then going to listen to it. But go check that song out. I think it's just a fantastic, fantastic song. And if you haven't heard Making Movies, you also need to go check out Making Movies. Those are the 2 essential Dire Straits listening experiences. If you like making movies, maybe go further down the list and check out other things. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. But anyways, that's it. Let me know what you think about Dire Straits, about this video, about their albums, about Mark Knopfler, about Sting, if you want. I don't know, about Bob Dylan, maybe. I don't know. Leave a comment, because you know how comments work. Like, suggest, I don't know. Subscribe. And more importantly, go listen to music, people, because the music makes you want to be the story, and the story is whatever was the song, what it was. Peace, y'all. I'm going to go eat some food. Bye.